103 of the war in Israel. I am Lizerbram, president of Jewish National Fund USA. In just a few days, we will be celebrating Tu B'Shvat, the original Earth Day, a time of hope and renewal. There's no better way to show you believe in light and life over darkness than planting trees in Israel with Jewish National Fund. This Tu B'Shvat, you can help rehabilitate the Be'eri forest located alongside the region bordering Gaza, which suffered the most brutal attacks in Israel's history on October 7th, and is still enduring the consequences of rockets, attacks, and war. You can mark the, quote, new year for the trees and the start of 2024 with a glimmer of hope and the promise to replant, restore, and revitalize the 120 acres of the forest. Please visit jnf.org/trees and plant the tree in memory or in honor of someone. And now, as of today, you can plant the tree in honor of an IDF soldier. Just type IDF in the box where it says name of honoree. We'll place the certificate in one of the boxes that we give to the soldiers. First, we will hear from our very own Marc Kelman, JNF-USA's National Board Assistant, First Vice President of Israel Operations. Marc is on the ground in Israel participating in one of our volunteer missions, and we're so pleased to see you while you take a break from the hard work you're doing. Marc?
Hello, everybody from Israel. As Sal said, I'm reporting from the almost like a festival here with the AAA Center for all the soldiers. And so this trip, many of you know, I've been involved for over 24 years now with the Jewish National Fund. I've been on a little more than 20 missions with the JNF, but this one will definitely have a special place in my heart. I've never been on one quite like this before, with the meaning behind it, the emotion behind it, the work that we are doing. What I'm finding amazing is the people, the other participants who are on this with us. We have people from young ages, middle ages, all the way up through senior citizens. And everybody is here, all walks of life, participating in our missions. Most of the people on the trip had no knowledge of the Jewish National Fund before they signed up for this. And they are learning what we do. They are learning what Israel is all about this week. Some of the work we're doing, for example, our first day, we went to a farmer and helped him pick his crop, because we picked oranges and grapefruits, and we all put the sack over our shoulder. We got our clippers. It had rained the night before, so we were standing out there in the mud and the wet, amongst the wet trees, picking bags and bags of crops. I'm told that we picked 22 bins, and a bin is about 3 feet deep and about 4 feet by 4 feet wide. We picked 22 of those in about a half a day, and we couldn't have felt better about it, because we know how much it helped that farmer bring in some revenue from that, because that crop would have rotted on the vine if not for us. We spent the rest of the day down at Soroka Hospital getting a briefing on how it was on October 7th, and learning that they had prepared in the past for almost any kind of a tragedy or an incident. But this was something they could never have imagined to plan for. They saw over 680 patients that day. People were dropping patients off in private vehicles, dropping them off at the front of the emergency room door, and driving away and bringing more patients in. It was something that you could never imagine. The next day, we went to Kibbutz Eretz. This kibbutz was pretty much vacant because everybody had been evacuated. But we were trying to fix it up and clean it up so that the people can move back. We planted flowers, shrubs, we painted, we even built 6 picnic tables and shellacked them. And there was nothing more comical than watching a bunch of Jewish guys trying to use power drills and saws and try to figure out how to put these picnic tables together. But it was very satisfying when we finished these. And when we looked at the whole place, about 6 hours after we got there and saw the work we had accomplished. The best part is, the most meaningful, is every person that we're helping here, the leaders of the kibbutz, the farmer who we picked for, the Israelis could not be more gratified of what we are doing for them. They repeatedly say, thank you, thank you, thank you for coming, thank you for showing solidarity with us. So I urge any of you, sign up for one of these trips. I know we're selling them out. Then our day today ended. We went to the site of the music festival. And I've been and walked through the concentration camps in Poland. I've been through Yad Vashem several times. I've been to the Holocaust museums in the States. And I'm sure many of you have, and you know the feeling you get. Well, this was every bit that feeling. You walk through there, they have faces of all of the lost ones and the hostages up on stakes. We said Kaddish, we lit candles. It's extremely emotional. It's extremely emotional. And I could not have been more happy that I'm here this week. If I could, I'd stay for as long as I could. But I really feel like this is the most meaningful mission that I have been on in all my 20-some missions with the Jewish National Fund. And I urge any of you, if you're looking to get on one, sign up, sign up.
So Mark, thank you so much for your beautiful words. Lauren and I were on the first mission. You're absolutely correct. The feeling is like nothing else that we've ever experienced. Just so you know, Mark is at Galat Junction in the Negev, and that's an area where they feed the soldiers that are going into Gaza, and the food is prepared by volunteers. The reception that JNF-USA gets is beyond compare. Mark, I know you need to go. Thank you so much. We can't wait till you get back and tell us some more stories. And today we're honored to have Ambassador Marc Regev, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's senior advisor for foreign affairs and international communications. Ambassador Regev graduated from the University of Melbourne with a bachelor in political science and modern history. He holds a master in political science from the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, as well as a master of science in management from Boston University. Ambassador Regev rose through the ranks of Israel's diplomatic corps, holding various roles in Hong Kong, Beijing, and Washington, D.C. Ambassador Regev served as Israel's ambassador to the UK, as well as the Prime Minister's international spokesperson. Ambassador, we're honored to have you join us today, and thank you for giving us your time.
So it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to give you my time, because I know what the Jewish National Fund is doing. I know it's not just the people down south who are helping pick the vegetables and the fruit. I know it's all year long that the Jewish National Fund is there helping Israel in any way it can. And I know now you've got this project Building Together, which is focused on rebuilding those parts of the areas around the Gaza Strip that were so decimated, that were destroyed, that were burnt, and to support our national effort to try to rebuild those communities. And it is really, really appreciated. And when Marc said a moment ago that he said how much people appreciate what you're doing, that's an authentic reflection of, I think, of all the Israeli people. They know what you're doing, and they very, very much say thank you, Toda Rabah, to the Jewish National Fund for your efforts. I thought I'd answer your questions, and your people can ask me any question that they like, but I thought I'd speak for a few minutes just about what's going on in the north, because it's been in the newspapers recently. Obviously, the focus has been on Gaza, but increasingly people are talking about what's going to happen in the north, and I'll try in a few sentences to try to explain so people can understand what's going on. So in the northern communities in Israel have been evacuated. We've got literally tens of thousands of displaced people in the north. All the communities that are adjacent to the Lebanese border have been evacuated. They've only got like skeleton staffs there at the moment, security teams and people who have to be there to do the work, but most of the civilians have been relocated down south or in the center of the country and so forth. And that's because since this terrible war started since the Hamas attacked, we've had all the time fighting, cross-border fighting on the border. So far, the fighting has been restricted to the immediate area of the Israel-Lebanese border, but there's been fighting, difficult fighting. We've lost people, we've lost soldiers, we've lost civilians. We've been, of course, shooting back, hitting back at Hezbollah targets there in the south. And I think I know they've been paying a much higher price than us. But so far, we've kept the conflict contained. There is a question, of course, will Hezbollah escalate the conflict? So far, they haven't done so. They have the ability, they have the missiles, they have the capability to hit targets deep inside Israel. They could hit Tel Aviv if they wanted with their rockets. But so far, they've refrained from doing so, possibly because they are concerned about Israel's response. So while they have the capability, they're seeing what we're doing against Hamas in Gaza. They've seen the effectiveness of the IDF in dealing with this crisis, and they know that if they start an escalation in the north, and if it goes beyond this sort of border clashes that we've seen, that they will see a very strong and committed Israel Defense Forces. And let me be clear here, if Hamas took us by surprise on October 7th, and we paid dearly for that surprise, we paid in blood for that surprise, we're not going to be taken surprise in the north. We are mobilized, we are ready, and if Hezbollah in the north decides to escalate the situation, they will have to deal with the full resolve and resources of the IDF. But let's presume that Hezbollah, for its own reasons, decides just to keep everything limited, which is a possibility. They might not want to escalate for their own reasons. Even in such a situation, I have to tell you that Israel will not go back to the reality on the northern border of October 6th, because then you had Hezbollah terrorists armed right on the border, eyeball to eyeball with the Israeli communities. And we know that Hezbollah forces have been training for years to do the same sort of attack that Hamas did in the south, to come across the border and to kill Israelis, to butcher us. And there's more of them than Hamas. That's the truth. They are a more formidable enemy numerically, and they share Hamas's fanaticism. So what we're saying, and we're telling our American friends, I was in a conversation with the Secretary of State when he was here a week ago, and it was said very clearly, Israel refuses to go back to the reality. Now, there's a UN resolution from before, immediately following the Lebanon War of 2006. And that UN resolution says there should be no armed Hezbollah south of the Litani River. And Israel is saying, now it's time. We refuse to see Hezbollah on the border. They have to be pushed back. I mean, ultimately, they shouldn't be there at all. They should be disarmed. That's in the same UN resolution. But as a first step, Hezbollah has to redeploy north of the Litani River. That's a UN Security Council resolution. And what we're saying to the Americans, we don't want to have a fight. And if you can get Hezbollah to move back away from the border peacefully, diplomatically, through carrots and sticks, fine. But let me be clear, the IDF will not agree, and Israel will not agree to have Hezbollah right on the border. They have to move back. And if we want our civilians to move back to their communities in the north and feel safe, they'll only do it when we've moved Hezbollah back away from the border. And that is the challenge. One way or another, Hezbollah will be pushed away from the border. If it can be done peacefully through diplomacy, and we're giving the Americans the time to do that, that's a good thing. But if necessary, we'll have to use other means to push them back. But one way or another, Hezbollah will no longer be on the frontier, eyeball to eyeball with the Israeli communities there. That's not a sustainable situation. We saw what happened when we had Hamas right on our border. We won't have its twin brother, Hezbollah, in the north in the same situation. And it's crucial, it's imperative that they're no longer there. And with that, I'm happy to answer your questions.
So, Ambassador, we have, we'll take just 2 questions for timing purposes. The first one is, For those families that were displaced, what do you think the timing is of those people to return to their communities?
So the truth is the timing depends on the security situation. I spoke about it in the north, that people are feeling anxious about returning too early when Hezbollah is still on the border. And in the south, of course, people want to be sure that there's not going to be some sort of resurgent Hamas and they'll be threatened again. So I think that question can only be answered when we see what happens, on the ground. We are destroying Hamas as we speak. In the northern Gaza Strip, Hamas no longer operates in an organized brigade or battalion structure. Of course, they're still there, but they're in small squads. They're unorganized. They're still dangerous. But the threat that they posed before October 7th in the north is not there anymore, and we'll be destroying the tunnels there too. In the south and the center of the Gaza Strip, where we started later, so it'll take a bit more time, but we will destroy Hamas, and we will create a new strategic reality in Gaza. And when that happens, I think the population of those communities by the border will feel much more comfortable to return to their homes. And I think it'll be the same in the north. When Hezbollah is pushed away from the frontier, from the Lebanese-Israel border, it'll be much easier to have people come home.
And then the last question is, this is sort of maybe a difficult one because it has to do with spirit. What's the government's plan for rebuilding, let's say, the spirit of the small businesses and communities in the north?
And in the south. I mean, ultimately, we've got areas, and you at the Jewish National Fund, you're involved in this. But we've got communities that were decimated. There are communities where 30% of the people were either killed or taken hostage. Terrible, terrible attacks on different communities in the south. Now, these people are resilient, but the government will be there to help them. And with the help of groups like organizations like the Jewish National Fund, we've got to give them the tools to succeed. We've got to give them the fishing rod so they can catch fish, metaphorically, of course. And we'll be there, and we will see these communities rebuilt. And we will see a thriving areas outside the Gaza Strip that when the border is quiet and people don't have to fear Hamas, we can build some of the most beautiful and successful areas of Israel. We can really succeed there. With the Hamas threat destroyed, I have optimism that these areas can become success stories, and it'll be the same in the north. These are communities that have suffered for so many years under Hamas rocket fire, and it's, when that threat is gone, we can really achieve something. You should know, and you asked me about spirit. This country's spirit has been showing itself since October 7th at its finest. Israelis have come together. You spoke a moment ago about, Marc with the group, the delegation you had that was down in the south, helping farmers pick their fruit and vegetables. My wife was down today with a group of women her age who went down south, and they've been volunteering and going down regularly. And because it's needed, because a lot of the foreign workers obviously left the country when the violence happened, and some of their fellow foreign workers were killed by Hamas, and they didn't think they had, they wanted to stay, though many did, but unfortunately many left. And so you see Israeli society getting together, and Marc spoke about the Israelis who are cooking, volunteering to give food for the soldiers. Now, the Israeli army gives them food, but people want to make sure they get the very best. And so you see all these Israeli chefs and Israeli cooks going down to the border and bringing their food for the soldiers who are risking their lives for the future of the Israeli people. We've seen this outpouring of national unity, of good citizenship, of Zionism, of people coming together. And Israel has been polarized over the last year. Israel has been very polarized politically, maybe like the United States, political people from the left and the right and secular and religious. I think what the terrible events of October 7th were a bit of a slap on the face and a wake-up call. Because when Hamas crossed the border and started to murder people, they didn't ask us, did we like the prime minister or not like the prime minister? They didn't ask us if we're left or right or secular or religious. They killed everyone. And I think this is an important point for us to remember. We as a Jewish people, we as a state of Israel, we have a destiny. And though we can passionately argue about politics, and we will, when this is over, we'll go back probably to business as usual, and we'll have our debates, but we should always remember what unites us. We are one people with one destiny, responsible for the Jewish state. And I think part of that wake-up call that we got on October 7th, we have to make sure that continues into the future. And here, the outpouring of support we've seen from diaspora communities, from your community in the United States, everything that you're doing at the Jewish National Fund is part of that spirit of Jewish unity that you said before, that people could buy a tree, plant a tree in Israel for a soldier, for an IDF soldier. That is, I think, a wonderful thing to do. And I think that's a symbol of the unity, that you can be a Jew and live in Brooklyn, or you can be a Jew and live here in Tel Aviv. It doesn't matter. One people, one future, one destiny.
Well, thank you, and we appreciate your dose of optimism. We could all use it. Thank you, Ambassador. We hope we can call on you to join us again in the future.
My pleasure. Thank you for happening, and thank you for having me, and thank you for everything that you do.
So next, we're going to welcome back Yoni Asher. Yoni joined us in the early days of the war as he fought for the return of his family, including his beloved wife and two beautiful daughters. They were released after 49 days of brutal captivity. Yoni, we're so relieved to see you this second time. While we know your heart is still with the hostages and their families, thank you for joining us today, Yoni.
Hello, and thank you for having me. Like you've mentioned, we have spoken on Zoom during the time that my family, my wife and two young daughters were held hostage. And I think it was maybe even two times. And luckily, in November 24, they got back at the first release, the very first release. It was the first time, the first deal. And since then, there've been extra 50 days, even more. It's 103 days, I think, today. And the reason I am speaking today is to stress the importance of how families of other hostages that unfortunately did not return yet feeling. And this is a very important issue. I will be able to speak about our own recovery and the complexity of family that experience such a thing that is, rare thing and unprecedented thing, especially here in Israel. But I think that the families that are still in this situation is very experience many difficulties right now, because it's been, like I said, 103 days, and this issue is getting harder and harder to put this issue back on the agenda at the first priority. I know, like the ambassador said, that many people are volunteering and many people are helping, and that is correct. Yet the public opinion, the public interest, the amount of interest that the public express is very important, because those families um, have no energy anymore to fight. And they are very frightened that they will be forgotten, that their loved ones, girls, young boys, fathers, mothers, they will be forgotten, and there will be no one to fight for them. And this is something that a lot of families talked with me about. Um, and we are trying to find a lot of ways to raise the awareness to the situation, like before, like I did with my own family. I can tell you that even that my family returned after 49 days, and we are twice as much from that amount of time. כן, מירב.
I think Yoni's trying to put his camera on.
Yeah, Yoni, we can't see you. If there's any way you can close your Teams app that's taking over your camera, we'd love to be able to see you if possible.
Okay, yeah, I closed my teams.
Okay,
Let
me restart your camera.
There you go.
Thank you, Yoni.
Okay, so like I said, my family has returned twice the time that they've been held hostage. They are home now. And there is a lot of complexity, especially when we are talking about small children. My daughters are 3 and 5 year old just now in January. And I think that I can't even imagine what other people, when they return, how will they be? Because we're talking about nightmares. We're talking about sometimes when you talk about little children, it can be rage situations. Some things that you, as a parent, you can notice some differences before from the situation that before they were abducted and after, and it's very difficult. And me and my wife, we are still we still haven't got back to our usual routine and to our jobs. And like I said, we cannot even start healing as long as our people, our brothers, also family related people that are still there, but generally all of the people that are still there and held hostage is something that for us it's not a complete closure, and it's very, very difficult because we can't be disconnected from our own people. We see the news, and I personally, I don't have to see the news. I talk to people on the phone and personally, and families related of the hostages, and it's very hard. We are experiencing October 7th each day. Each day it stayed with us, and sometimes memories are coming in our minds. Also, my wife, also me. So the urgency of getting back whoever is still there, and the assessment that they are still alive, most of them are still alive. It's first degree humanitarian cause, I think. And I hope that first of all, it's important to say that this organization helped many people, and I am very thankful for your activity on this matter. I think that we need to trust our government and our systems again, and we are doing that. And this is something that it's not you can take it for granted that civilians can trust in their army, in their government, and give them all the backup. And the soldiers, the warriors are part of us. And even though we have somewhere in the territory people abandoned us, are those systems that were supposed to defend the civilians were not there. So it's not something that you need to take for granted, that we are still believe in our systems. We are still believe in the people that responsible to end the situation. And I think also the American government is something that we trust on, like we trust the Israeli government. We also trusted the American government. And I think that the American administration should also check what went wrong, and how can he put in first priority the return of the hostages, because this subject is connected to trust of the civilians in the government. Imagine that civilians in the future will remember that people died while held hostage because the time passed and they were neglected, and the sanitarian conditions there is very, very negative. My daughters got back with bacterias, and my wife was injured and had a I forgot the word, infected. So imagine what can happen right now to all the people, to girls. It's something that we need to always put first priority on the agenda. If anyone would like to ask a question, uh, feel free to ask.
So Yoni, I'll look for any questions that come in the chat, but in the interim, it's clearly an unimaginable situation what you and the other families go through. In your case, before and after the release, there's still a lot of work to do. But we also want to thank you for supporting those families who still are awaiting release of their loved ones. And I know that there's, and we're part of it, but just wanted to thank you for helping. People are asking, like, how'd you find the strength? It's a tough question, but we'll take a couple minutes, just 2 minutes, if you want to sort of answer. How did you find the strength while you were waiting?
Well, I was in a lot of activities, so my mind was distracted, you might say. But you can't run away from this situation, and it was very difficult for me. There were moments that you didn't see on camera, but like any other person, I'm also human. So I was sometimes I needed to break down, but I had hope. I had hope because I knew that they were taken alive, and I was hoping that because they are a family, a mother and two young daughters, somehow, until there will be a deal, they will be alive and in a reasonable condition. But nothing can guarantee it, and you are hanging, um, literally hanging, and you can't do anything. You can only be as hopeful as you can, and sometimes you are more hopeful and sometimes not. I think that the families are heroes, the families that are still in this situation. I can't even imagine if I was still waiting to my family right now. I don't think, I don't know how I would survive. It's so hard. So thank you for that question.
And then the last question, Yoni, was your wife and your 3 and 5-year-old together while they were being held?
Luckily, they were together, but I want to say that we were very lucky because it could be easily different. I can tell you that there was a situation during the abduction that one of the Hamas terrorists took my older daughter, Raz, on his hands and start walking, while my wife and my young daughters were getting on the cart with the tractor that they were eventually abducted with. And if my wife haven't seen on the field this man with Raz, my older daughter, on his hands and screaming to him, "Give me my daughter back!" And during the drive, he gave my wife Raz, my daughter, during the drive, and she almost fell from the cart. So we were very lucky. So when people are asking, were they together or they got food, Hamas, the other side, immediately tried to take this and say, look, we are treating those people good. They will take anything you say and will use it for their own good. And I want to only mention that at the first release, the mob banging on the Red Cross doors, and the camera filmed it. And if you will notice, the next releases, Hamas took care of that people will stay away from the Red Cross vehicles in order for his image. So it's very important to them, their image. Even though they did the most horrific things that you can imagine, they are still very worried about their international image.
So Yoni, thank you for again joining us and sharing with us, your story and your spirit. And Yoni, I know you know this, but JNF-USA is a proud supporter of the Hostage and Missing Families Forum, the Israeli nonprofit established by and for the support of the families of those kidnapped on October 7th. So Yoni, take care of you and your family, and we hope to see you again in better times.
Thank you for having me.
Our next weekly briefing will be 1 week from today, Wednesday, January 24th, at this time at the same Zoom address. But don't forget to visit jnf.org/volunteeRIL to sign up for one of our upcoming missions. For those who will be in Florida next month, please consider joining us for our annual Winter Connection events taking place in Boca Raton. Our signature event is on Thursday, February 8th, a beautiful brunch, and is for all donors making a minimum gift of $1,800 to our annual campaign. There are also special dinners scheduled for donors, or as we call them, partners, at the President Society level and above, and for our World Chairman Council. Please reach out to your local JNF-USA professional for more information. I'm Israel Chai.